We're all aging, and it's one of life's greatest privileges. But how do we turn the table on aging so it's not something to fear, but it's actually an opportunity to embrace? What if aging meant extending the quality of our life and learning to sit comfortably in our older selves as naturally as we once did in our youth? I'm Jacinta Parsons, and brought to you by Uniting AgeWell, this is The Aging Ideal. Through honest and inspiring conversations, we'll cut through the noise to find out what it really means to grow older well.
Do you feel lonely?
I've got a very good partner, but I do feel lonely at times now because I'm approaching my 83rd year and most of my good friends have died.
I'm really comfortable in my own company. I've been living alone for 37 years and, very comfortable in my own company. Don't ever feel lonely.
When the pace of life slows and the noise of ambition quells, many of us do know the delicate difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is that hollow ache of absence. It's the empty chair at the table. It's the silence that presses in when we really long for voices that we can no longer hear. But solitude is something else entirely. It's the grace of one's own company. Maybe it's the soft gift of just sitting still after a life where you've been running at full pace. It's the quiet in which memories breathe and small joys shine brighter. Look, I know in my own life that it's challenging to be alone and to be lonely, but how cultivating a practice of solitude has made a huge difference to me. So in this episode, we get to know more about the concept of loneliness versus solitude and discover just what we can all do to both prepare for being alone and support those that are. Associate Professor Anita Goh is a clinical neuropsychologist and leading researcher on aging, cognition, and mental health at the National Aging Research Institute. She's dedicated her work to understanding the emotional and social experiences of older people, including how loneliness and connection shape well-being in later life. Welcome, Anita.
Great to see you again.
What's the difference between loneliness and solitude?
So loneliness is that feeling of disconnection. And when you don't have anyone around you that understands you. So you know that saying where they say you can be in a room full of people and you can still feel lonely because you don't feel validated. You don't feel like you belong. And it's a really painful feeling. Contrast that with solitude. And solitude is different. That is often really restorative, a time for self-renewal and autonomy. And many people, hopefully they choose solitude because that's what suits them. And they choose it and they self-frame it, hopefully as self-care. I was talking to a woman a few weeks ago and she said, Anita, I love getting up in the morning and having a cup of tea. No one talks to me. And I have a coffee and still nobody's talking to me. And it's the best time of her day. That's solitude and it's enjoyable and it's that framing of self-care. Then she said, but then, I live alone and then sometimes when I see something funny on the TV, I want to share it with someone, but there's no one to share it with because I live by myself. Those two feelings aren't mutually exclusive. You can feel lonely in 1 hour of the day and then enjoy your solitude in another hour of the day.
If it is not possible to have that connection, because we know in our elder community, it's so hard, getting out or connecting with family that are really busy or loved ones that have passed away. Yeah. How do we manage the inevitability of that loneliness? What is the way that we can find our way to that reconnection?
I really think we can be active about challenging the loneliness epidemic. So you said that older people have different barriers to social connection. So you're right. So there's things, sometimes your physicality changes, your mobility will change, vision, hearing impairments, things also that are more common with age, like cognitive impairment, dementia. And then there's things like, where you live, who you live with, the losses and grief that often comes with being older. And things like retirement, like life stage things where sometimes your social group is tied up with your work or where you live and then you move and then they kind of naturally shrinks your social circle. So I think we know that though. So when we know things, we can do things to address them. An example is moving into residential aged care. It's a big life transition, but we can do things to plan for that transition. So yes, your social networks will change a little bit, but how can we bolster them when you move into your new home? So when you know it and you know that it is an issue and so many people experience loneliness, then I think we have an opportunity to put supports in place. And I think it's a social responsibility.
Yeah.
So wrapping services around people who are going to retire. And we know that the structure of your day changes, but instead of seeing it as a negative mindset that you're going to lose all your friends, you're going to lose structure, it's actually an opportunity. And so many people embrace the opportunity with both hands, and they're volunteering their time and they're volunteering their expertise.
How does loneliness impact our physical health later in life?
So when you are feeling lonely and socially isolated, it can do really bad things to your body. Increases your risk of high blood pressure, heart disease, depression, cognitive decline. It increases your hospitalization rates, is your unwanted transfer to nursing homes. It increases risk of stroke, elder abuse, obesity, dementia, suicide and death.
But if I'm at home and I'm listening to you and I'm, hey, that's me, I feel really a lot of pain in my experience of loneliness, and it's become hard for me to even find a way to communicate that. What's my first step? Where do I go to get the support to help me reconnect?
So I think bringing it back to what we talked about before, asking yourself the questions about why you're lonely, whether or not you feel disconnected, distressed, whether you feel like there's no one out there to help you with your problem. So if that is the experience that you're feeling, then reach out. And it can be difficult, I understand. And I have heard from people that sometimes that first step is really difficult.
So hard. Do you go to a GP?
We have an amazing primary healthcare team in your terms of your GPs. GPs know that health is related to loneliness and social isolation. And that is absolutely something that is a valid reason to go to the GP for.
So good to know that.
Yes. We have this thing in the healthcare system that's called social prescribing. So social prescribing is like medical prescribing, like when someone prescribes you antibiotics, but it's prescribing social connection. And there's many things that we can prescribe. So your GP should have some information about the community things that can support you. Maybe it's a local council who put on things. They will have information about specific issues that have social supports wrapped around them. Like, for example, Dementia Australia will have support groups of people living with dementia, and they can connect you. You can connect in person, which is great and probably gold standard. But if you do have the choice to want to connect remotely, then there's online options as well.
Having those practical, researched understandings of what we're facing, having more conversations about this so we're all aware from every age how we start thinking about our social connections and how we manage them. Thank you so much for the work you do, Associate Professor Anita Goh.
Thank you too. This is a great podcast where you highlight lots of different aspects around ageing and society as well, and how we can be more inclusive.
It's no secret. We know that we need to connect to ward off loneliness, but that's actually not as simple as it sounds. How do you connect when you get into your elder years? Where do you go? How do you maintain friendships? I've decided to come down to a men's shed and actually ask some of the men here exactly what it means to be part of this group. Does this help with warding off loneliness? Let's go and find out. This is the first time I've actually gone into a men's shed. I've spoken about them, I've thought about them, but I'm actually here. Kerri, thank you for letting me in. It's kind of sacred space, isn't it?
Well, yes and no.
So we can hear in the background there, I'm going to say the word angle grinder. It's not. I know it's a rotary saw, perhaps. What happens usually at a regular kind of meeting at the men's shed?
Well, guys bring their own private projects, and we also get involved in community projects. So we do stuff for kindergartens, daycare centres, schools, individuals that come in and want to get something, made to order.
Not all of these men have previously worked with these tools, have they?
No. I've got one guy here, well, several, but one guy here, 30 years in the tax department, and we still let him in.
He could be an asset to the team.
He could be an asset.
Let's say.
Was twist that around. Was that a...
Well, not intentionally, Kerri. You know that's not my forte. This has been cited as a really important place for men.
Absolutely. There's guys that come here that will tell you openly that without it, they wouldn't be here. So they play an important role in Australian mental health and physical health. And guys will yap to one another while they're standing at a bench.
Are you going to take me on a tour?
Sure.
Globally, we are facing an epidemic of loneliness, so much so that both Japan and the UK governments have installed loneliness ministers in an attempt to combat this growing issue. And here in Australia, we're not immune, with 1 in 4 of us reporting that we feel lonely frequently. 1 in 4. And as I looked around the room, I wondered if anyone here would consider themselves that 1 in 4.
We're actually in the shed right now. Very well ordered shed.
So the gentleman sitting there on the corner is 102 years old.
Shall we go and meet him?
Yeah, if you
he's
want
up for it.
Yeah.
I'm here with Clem.
Why do you come to the men's shed?
When the shed was formed, Moonee Valley Council, people were in the same situation as you were. For any man that's on his own or on the loose, it's the best thing invented. Thing about doing this sort of thing, it's all right keeping your body working and that sort of thing. To keep that, it's what's sitting on your shoulders is the prime thing. It was an opportunity to occupy time and meet friends and people who are in the same situation as you were.
Clem has just headed back to his bench, but I can see the two that I want to speak to now. Sonny and Ian, they're in the tea room having a chat.
Through a friend of mine, I found out about this shed. I just love it.
I've been working all my life and then I retired and I was doing nothing. Something popped up about a men's shed, so I came down and I've been down here ever since.
Would you have described before coming in here you feeling moments of loneliness?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
It wasn't too bad for the first few years. It's just that you've got nothing to do. You've been busy all your life.
This is after retirement.
Yeah. You're always busy with your hands and all of a sudden you've got nothing to do. Consequently, when I joined this shed, it was great because you suddenly find you've got a lot of new friends, plenty to do.
Is it important to you to feel part of a group like this to ensure that you never feel lonely?
As a matter of fact, only 2 days ago, my daughter was talking to my wife and myself, saying you are getting old, and so we are thinking of buying a big block of land where we'll build a house for ourselves and you will be there as well. So I told her on one condition, I'll still want to be close to the shed. Yeah, we just try and understand each other. Everyone has issues. One doesn't realize it, but almost everyone has their own personal issues. So getting together, talking about it, just feel relaxed.
This has been great for me. I've loved this shed. It means a lot. It's one thing we can look forward to, isn't it? Every day we come down.
For people that are feeling lonely and disconnected, what would you say to them about making that step into joining a men's shed or a community group? Why?
Exactly, do something. Why? We've taken so much from the society in a sense that this is an opportunity to give back something. And so I don't feel I'm lonely at all because I know this place, fall back to come and meet the people here.
It's a men's shed, a working shed, but it's not just here to work. The good thing is you can come and sit down or chat to any one of the guys just to, get it off your chest, make you feel better.
Now I feel like I've got more of an understanding of loneliness. It's time to turn our attention to the concept of solitude. Many great thinkers, Buddha, Barack Obama even, have sung praises to the benefits of solitude. So why can it be so scary to be alone with yourself? Author and columnist Kerri Sackville, who's just written a wonderful book about loneliness and solitude called The Secret Life of You, has spent years analysing our attitude towards solitude in later life. And she thinks she might know how we can learn to enjoy and even cherish our own company as we age. Kerri, why were you inspired to explore this idea of solitude?
It all started during COVID lockdown. I was alone at home with 3 kids. Simultaneously, I was incredibly lonely, but also never actually alone because I had my kids around me. And I didn't manage it well at all. And I realised that I needed to learn to be comfortable in my own company. I wanted to shift my attitude. So it started really by putting down my phone and learning just to sit with myself and sit with my thoughts. And it proceeded to then actually take myself out. So, take myself out for lunch, take myself out for coffee, going for long walks by myself, and seeing the difference that it made to my life and to my mental health by learning to actually keep myself company as one would keep a friend company. And then I started analysing all the ways in which, first of all, that we lose out by never ever being alone, and the ways that solitude can benefit us and our mental health and our relationships, surprisingly, as well.
When we age, we have perhaps gone from this enormously busy life, family, all the pressures that comes with, and you desire almost time to be by yourself. But really it is quite a difficult shift in our lives when suddenly our children don't have time, our grandchildren don't have time, our neighbours, our friends are dying. There's a big shift in the way of our connection. How do we find a way to cope with that?
Yeah.
Through solitude?
Yeah. It's not the quantity of connections we have, but we have to be able to make quality connections, even, one or two friends, one or two really strong relationships. We need to make rituals with the people with whom we do spend time so that can sustain us also in periods of solitude. So when you have really good, meaningful connections, they actually can help to sustain you in the times when you are by yourself. So I can still keep within me the love of my partner, the love of my children, the love of my parents, even if they all might be absent.
What can we do when we really are not in a position of choice for the fact that we've possibly lost so many people in our life? How do we actually experience living in solitude at that point?
So there are some things that you can do. There's some very practical steps that you can take. And one of them is learning how to engage in dialogue with yourself. Right?
So me talking to myself, no.
No, 100%. I mean, I talk to myself all the time. And when I say talk to myself, I mean quite literally, I will have conversations with myself. Sometimes I will interview myself like you're interviewing me now. So I can be sitting in my car and I'll ask myself questions. Oh, what did you think of that movie? And I'll kind of listen for the answer. And often the answer will surprise me. What's the best thing that's happened this week? What are you looking forward to? What do you really want, in this situation? What do you think is going to happen? So a very practical thing that you can do is either do some writing. I find that journaling is a really good way to learn how to communicate with yourself, or chat to yourself, ask yourself questions, say in the car or when you're pottering around your house, as you would ask a good friend, and listen to your answers. A lot of the time we ask questions of other people that we have never asked of ourselves. Even, for example, how are you today? How often do you get up in the morning and say, how am I today? It's very easy to, focus our attention on other people and be curious about other people and want to learn about them and forget to learn about the one person who is going to be with us for the rest of our lives, and that's ourselves.
This is very revealing, but I talk to my appliances and my house a lot as well.
Nice.
Just say, thank you, toaster. I really enjoyed your... It's actually been one of the skills that I developed was when I come home and I'm by myself, I'm actually not. I'm surrounded by things that I love.
Yes.
And the touchstones of ideas that I love, and referring to them and remembering that they're there by saying hello to them.
Yeah. As we get older, there's often an idea that our options are more limited. I think when you are prepared to do things alone, it actually makes your life more expansive because you are not waiting for permission from somebody else. For example, I've met so many women who say things like, oh, I always wanted to go to Spain, but, John never wanted to go to Spain, so we never went. Or I'd really love to see this movie, but I can't find anyone to go with me, so I'm going to miss out. If we are prepared to do things by ourselves, take ourselves on a trip, take ourselves to the restaurant, take ourselves to the movie, if we don't need somebody else's permission to have those experiences, it opens up possibilities for us.
I think another aspect of us as we age is our physical capacities. Also, we're experiencing grief at loss.
Yes.
That can complicate our ability to enjoy solitude because what we really do need is comfort during those times. How do we manage that? Because that's hard.
Yeah, of course it's hard. And nobody will get to the end of their life without experiencing significant, grief, loss, trauma. It's just a part of life. And the thing about grief is that you really can only go through it alone. If two siblings lose a parent, they're still going to both experience that grief separately and as a personal pain. But having said that, there are times in our life when it's not ideal to be alone. and you don't want to be alone when you're in active trauma. But the only way to process difficult emotions is actually to go through them. And we can't continually distract ourselves by turning ourselves away from our grief and focusing on other people or being distracted by other people. At some stage, we actually have to sit with our grief and our pain, and that is how we get to the other side of it.
It's so tricky as we age. And, you know, in aged care, I think maybe the assumption is, great, you're amongst a whole group of humans. But that's sometimes also where we can feel most lonely.
Unfortunately, it is a reality that we can feel the most lonely when we are surrounded by other people with whom we don't feel connected.
Oh.
So particularly when somebody is placed into an aged care home or chooses to go to an aged care home, they're suddenly surrounded by people, but they don't know these people and they're not their friends and they're not their family. And so that can be a time when they feel even more lonely than before until they have a chance to hopefully build a connection with one or two people, whether it's staff or whether it's other residents. And so I think as family, it's really important to be aware of that with big changes like that can come a time of increased loneliness, and to help people get over that transition by facilitating connections, by making sure that they still have, you know, a lot of contact with people from their previous lives, because that can be a really tough time.
This might not be your area of expertise, but making a connection sounds okay, but it can be the hardest thing.
It can be
if it's not who
difficult.
you are as a person as well, reaching out into the world. And the more isolated we get, the more difficult it is to make those steps to actually connect anywhere. Yeah. Any ideas on how we cultivate that?
It's through rituals. It's through seeing people on a regular basis at the same time that connections grow. When I had my baby, I joined a mother's group, and it was with a group of women. I didn't know any of them. I felt no connection to any of them. And it really took months of seeing them once a week so we could play with our babies, where I started to feel like, oh, hang on, well, these people are now my friends. And, you know, it's like the person that you see every week at the bank or at the shop. It's like the person that you see every week if you're going to, you know, the same doctor's waiting room and you're sitting there for your blood tests once a week and you kind of nod and smile. So even though it can be really hard to sort of sit down with somebody new and start a conversation and find common ground, if you are placed in a situation where you are doing the same things over and over, you have a routine, you have these rituals, that is how connections can grow, because everybody is there, the emotion is heightened, everybody's feeling the same emotion at the same time. So even though you're not actually having conversations with people, you are caught up in the shared communal excitement, and that can be a really nourishing experience.
I don't see as much of my children as I would like to. I have 6 children, and they live in areas away from where I live.
I quite enjoy withdrawing. I'm quite self-contained. Maybe that's a male thing, I don't know.
I live on my own and I love it, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
When I think about learning to love the idea of solitude, I think of a woman I had the privilege of meeting recently. In her 85th year, Mayer has found peace, comfort, and even delight in living alone. I gave her a call and I asked her what she thinks of the crisis of loneliness for older people.
We're all influenced by the stories that are prevalent in our society. And the story about solitude in our society is very negative. People never learn how to take advantage of solitude. And our whole society is around, well, you can't be alone. There's something wrong with being alone. You have to have someone with you. You want to stave off dementia. You have to have a lot of friends. It's very difficult for people to cope with that concept of being alone.
It is very painful, though, loneliness. Would you agree with that?
Well, yes, and I think it's painful because people don't know how to be with themselves. Like, it shouldn't be painful to spend time in your own head, using your imagination, thinking about everything that's around you, to be able to use that for creativity. If you look through history, you'll find the people who are really creative spend a lot of time on their own.
You are nearly 85 years of age. In your life, you know, as with so many people as we get older, your family, they're busy, children, grandchildren, everyone's got something on, friends are busy or are unwell or aren't visiting. How do you make those days feel full and nourishing if you're spending it by yourself?
Well, I've got a lot of things to occupy myself. I do a lot of reading. I still keep in touch with what's happening in the world. I do creative things. I paint, I knit. I spend quite a bit of time thinking about the world and what's happening in it. There are so many ways in which you can occupy yourself these days.
You are the opposite of sitting around and not doing anything. You got your PhD when you turned 70, you know. Have you ever felt lonely?
Yes, the times when I have felt lonely has been when I have had visitors or, you know, spend time with my family and they leave.
Yeah.
It's that sense of, I don't know, I suppose of abandonment or, you know, I have had this contact with people and now I am alone. And I guess that could be one of the things that, like if you had a large social circle, you would miss that when it wasn't there.
What would you say to anyone of any age about learning to be comfortable in their own company?
I don't know. How do you get people to think and contemplate? I spent some time in contact with Meaningful Aging, and their thing is creativity is spiritual because it takes you out of yourself and puts you into a state of flow with something that completely absorbs you. One of the things about aging, our attention is taken by what actually interests us at the moment or the things that are happening around us that we have no control over. And as you get older, you get more distracted by the things around you and less about paying attention to what matters to yourself. We're a work in progress no matter how old you get.
What I've learned is that loneliness can be so tough, while solitude, it restores us. One leaves us yearning, the other reminds us that we are already whole. And perhaps the task of this season of life is to recognise the difference, to gently turn loneliness into connection where we can, and to welcome solitude as a companion that brings peace, clarity, and a deeper sense of self. You've been listening to The Aging Ideal, a podcast brought to you by Uniting AgeWell. We hope that you've really enjoyed the stories, the perspective, and expert advice on the experience of aging. I'm looking forward to continuing this important conversation next episode.